If half the change you get back at the gas stop is in Canadian, you're probably riding a motorcycle in Michigan. Hello and welcome to Best Motorcycle Roads. I'm Tom.
And I'm Todd. We have over 65 years of combined motorcycling experience and 30 years of planning and riding motorcycle trips. We're here to share with you everything we've learned over those years.
Our goal at Best Motorcycle Roads is simple. Make your next motorcycle trip the best it can be. We'll dive into technology, planning, packing, routes, and everything in between.
From essential prep to unforgettable routes, we've got you covered.
Before we kickstart today's journey, we ask you to sign up for our BMR Rider Alerts. It's our way of keeping you in the loop with the latest rides, tips, and stories. We promise no spam, only the essentials to enhance your motorcycle adventures. Join the BMR crew today. We'll put a link in the show notes. This segment about motorcycle gear reviews and tips we call the Toolkit. Todd, let's talk about smartphone mounts today.
I have some experience with this.
So there's kind of three mounts, I guess you would say. I mean, there's 100 of them, of course, but there's three really. I mean, ram mount has the X grip, and that's kind of your classic ram ball attached to kind of this skeleton-looking thing with an X grip, is what they call it, a spring-loaded X that kind of fits your phone in and it kind of snaps inside. I guess it's strong, pretty secure for the most part. I think you'll explain maybe an issue there, but basically the rubber tips, as long as they're kind of positioned properly, they'll hold your phone in there pretty well. But there is a tether that's really important, right?
Very important. So when they first came out with the X grip, they didn't include any sort of a tether.
Right.
And there were a couple of times where I hit some bumps.
Right.
And it shook the handlebars enough that my phone actually did flop out of there. And I thought, well, this is shitty. So I started putting a rubber band around the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then you have a rubber band around the middle of your screen. Well, a couple of years later, they came out with a silicone
Kind of a grabber.
web, and you put it on
basically
the
a rubber
back.
band that
Yep,
quartered
and then
up.
you get all four corners, and it secures it to the back. So that worked great. So I ordered some of those just online, Amazon or something.
So if you can imagine the X, if you kind of compress the X into a sideways X, you put the phone in the middle and it kind of opens up, the rubber grabs on, but
yes,
there's a little bit of trouble sometimes. So if you're using this, make sure you use the tether.
You have to have the tether on it. And then the other thing with this is if you don't position it exactly right, those grips that are on the side can actually like push your buttons.
Right. And that is the other problem with most phone mounts. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, you've
So-
got to kind of get it set in there just right.
Yeah, the second one eliminates that problem. That's called the quad lock. And basically what that is it's an attachment, and it's a case and or an attachment that goes on the back of the phone. You kind of turn it, and then you kind of spin it 90 degrees, and it locks in. So there, you're kind of in a good spot, I think. So the advantages is very secure, not really going to come off unless bad things happen.
Yeah.
So it kind of has that dual lock, kind of a dual stage locking system in it. And I think the only negative about this is it's kind of like attached to your phone. So you almost have to have a special case for that, whereas like now modern phones now are also a lot of wireless charging. Not all these have that part. So the third one kind of is that Zero Gold Strike. That one is the one that's kind of, it kind of has a lever lock, so you can do it with one hand, which is kind of nice. You put it in, snap it down, and you kind of get some tension on the side. There's adjustability to prevent the buttons. And what I like about this one, and this is what I actually have on the Goldwing for me, is it also includes a wireless charger. But the negatives here, of course, it's just kind of compression fit in there a little bit. So what I've noticed over time, if I'm not paying attention, it will come undone. So it'll stop charging.
Oh, yeah.
Hard to kind of see that. So yeah, for me, that's the negative there. And it is slippage. You'll see some slippage sometimes. And it's not easy. Sometimes I don't know why it's going out of charger mode, but you can't always just get it back working again. But it's usually charging up to full capacity, so it's kind of helpful. So.
And I do have two newer RAM mounts. One for my phone and one for my 7-inch tablet.
Yeah.
Like I need all that on the
Right.
bike. But the newer motorcycle one for my just for my mobile phone is RAM mount, but it's kind of a sliding tension thing from the top and bottom, and it has 2 lips that come over. So your phone kind of goes back in there, and then it slides down real tight.
And then I assume the bottom maybe has the hole so you can charge.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, the bottom has a hole. You got to push, put your cord through there. And then I have just a larger version of that for my for 7-inch tablet. And those I feel like they're more secure than
I would agree. I think
the X Grip was.
I mean, I think what we're starting to see now, newer bikes are starting to have the Android Auto CarPlay. Now you can take that phone, put it somewhere else and charge. And then, or you can get the add-on CarPlay Android Auto kind of screen. And a lot of these are starting to come, you can buy a wireless accessory so they can do things, connect wirelessly. I mean, the safest thing is to get them into a bag and charge them while you're not touching them. Because I know it's so habitual to just want to touch that sucker.
Well, and it's nice to have it out there. I'm not using it for anything other than like GPS and maps and things like that. Or if someone does call, it'll show me on the screen that someone's calling. I can hear it in my headset, and I just tap and I'm talking. Nice. But that's really why I have it out there, is mostly for the GPS.
What I like is if with all this newer features and some of this other options, you can put that phone away, so it's also just temperature, wet.
Yep, it doesn't get wet.
That anyone's ruined a phone that way.
I've ruined 2 phones that way, and it's not in the sun. They do overheat if they're in the sun, and
Yep, cool.
RideWise is the section we focus on planning and safety tips. So for today's RideWise planning and safety tip, since we're talking about Michigan, riding in Michigan, I just want to talk about a couple of things unique to Michigan. The winters are pretty brutal.
So put spikes in your tires?
No. But it affects the roads. You're going to get a lot of potholes, in the spring. You'll also get a lot of gravel onto the roads because the snowplows and everything are pushing snow that it picks up the gravel and all that kind of stuff. So just make sure that you're paying attention, especially in the spring before the potholes are fixed. You get a lot of heaving and that kind of stuff from the ice getting under freezing under the roads. And then it does get hot, makes sure you're hydrated. And then there is a such thing called the Great Lakes effect, on weather, and it makes the weather change pretty suddenly in Michigan. So when you're leaving, be prepared for things like rain, fog, strong winds.
Nor'easter.
I don't know about nor'easters, but just pack accordingly. Just know that it can change quickly.
Yeah, it really can.
And have your rain gear packed at the top of your bag so that you're not having to dig down.
Yeah, and I always say put it in the right side of your saddlebag.
Great idea.
So when you get off the road, you're on non-traffic side.
Great idea. Yeah, I love that.
The next segment is what we call the mile marker. It's our story segment. All right. Well, we're at part 5 of the Midwest Top 5 Roads series, I guess we'd call it.
Yeah.
Yep. So today we're talking Michigan. The Great Lakes state has some pretty good rides. It's kind of the uppers versus the bottom dwellers. Michigan, it's very different up north versus the lower part.
Yeah.
Now, I will say a little bias here because I have not rode the east side of Michigan too much.
Nor have I.
I have it all. But I do think that the roads that we picked today are some of the better roads there. But please argue with us in the comments.
Yeah.
So coming into number 5 for me is up to Whitefish Bay, Takamannan Falls to Whitefish Point. So we've talked about this before recently, actually, but it is just a scenic route through the Upper Peninsula, just deep forest roads, stops that just, the lakes for me. And then Takamannan Falls State Park, Whitefish Point, and then the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum, which we also talked about recently, is up in Whitefish Bay, and I've been to that. It's amazing. It is really, truly, if you're anywhere near, please go because it's really great. It also sports up in those areas one of the largest waterfalls on the east side of the Mississippi. So yeah, and then when you get to Whitefish Point, it's just a really crazy view. I mean, you start to look around and there's a lot of lake to look at up there, and it just kind of it's almost like 180 degrees of lake.
And that's Lake Superior looking into like Whitefish Bay, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where some of these big wrecks have happened, and you start to understand why. It's just like there's not much. I mean, it's like north is Canada, and it's just you can see where it get vicious in November. Yeah. Lots of course, lighthouse. When you're at Whitefish Point, you can see Lake Superior and what lighthouse is there. And then the museum. Just some great stuff. So that's number 5. Number 4, US 2. So if you think of the northeastern side of the south part of Michigan, Rogers City is kind of their first big city to Manistee, which is on the Upper Peninsula. So think about starting in Rogers City, and then you cross the Mackinac Bridge, and then you kind of follow the lakeshore of the Upper Peninsula. Mackinac Bridge is just quite the ride. Itself, Lake Michigan views, you got lighthouses and pasties, of course, but there's all kinds of syrup and blueberries, a lot of things growing up there that you don't really think of all the way, and there's lots of places to get that. Rogers City, there's the 40-mile lighthouse in that area, and again, the Mackinac Bridge, I think it's not 5 miles, it's 2 miles, I think.
It's 2 or 3, yeah, I think so, yeah.
It's one of the longest suspension bridges. Used to have a lot more, I think, graded road. I don't know if there's as much of that. That's a little interesting.
Oh, the wire grate?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then Cut River Bridge is actually on the north side too, and that's kind of a cool. Some of these bridges are old, hopefully secure, but they're cool, and there's some hikes, and sometimes it's the reason why some of these are there is because they were a lot of times it was for the train traffic, and you kind of look down below and you can kind of see it's a pretty good cut sometimes. When you stop at some of those little places, it's pretty neat. But there's also a lot when you're in Manistee. I mean, this is a very local fishing area. So you can get some fresh fish that are pretty tasty at times, I think, too.
Yeah.
Number 3, and this is one that I've personally never been on, Huron River Drive. That's Ann Arbor to Dexter. So that follows the Huron River. Lots of winding roads, scenic views, Barton Nature Area, the Delhi Metro Park, and then downtown Dexter if you're kind of interested in that little shopping thing. Zingerman's Roadhouse in Ann Arbor is supposed to be quite the place to eat. And then there's a lot of the Delhi Metro Park has some great kind of riverish things, and like we said, downtown Dexter. So those are unfortunately places I've never been, but I've heard and seen the pictures. It looks good. Not on the current roadmap, but maybe in a couple of years. We've never really explored that part.
No, we haven't.
It'd be kind of fun I think that'd be all right to do too.
Yeah. So our next planned route is really just going around Lake Michigan
and Huron.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, Huron is on.
And on the other side, the Canadian side, is what we've been thinking.
Yeah.
So, but it wouldn't be bad to come around them that way sometime too. Yeah. Coming into number 2, I don't know if you've read this one before or not. It's on the southern part of Michigan, on the western side, Traverse City to Northport.
Yeah.
They call it the Leilani Peninsula, so that's kind of way, way up there. And there is some great lighthouses there that I have stopped at. And again, the views of Lake Michigan. You keep saying views and views and views. My goodness, it really is something. That's also where Sleeping Bear Dunes Park is at, if you've heard of that.
Yep.
Lots of hiking and things there. But Leland, I didn't realize, and I don't think I even stopped when we went by Leland, but is historic fish town. So lots of shops and fresh seafood. So I'm thinking sometime we really probably should hit that, even if it's a ferry ride across or something. And then actually along 22 is a lot of vineyards too. So I don't know what a vineyard tour does. We haven't done that before, but there's some interesting, lots of blueberries, grapes, and things growing in these areas, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've been on plenty of vineyard tours, but in California, never in.
It's the same,
sure.
except colder. And then for number 1, and it's maybe one of the shortest routes that we've have on this, but it's the Tunnel of Trees, M119.
Yeah.
So it's just to the west if you were coming off the bridge to the south. So basically, this is just quite. It talks about the Michigan shoreline, and you probably are less than a quarter of a mile from it, but you don't see it hardly at all. It's just complete dense trees.
Yeah.
And narrow. This thing is narrow. It is not 2 cars wide.
Yeah.
Some of the great things to see there: Harbor Springs, Cross Village is a little place that has a place called the Historic Legs Inn. It's a restaurant that's been around for quite some time. Kind of It looks a little bit like what am I trying to think? Like a grotto-esque, I would say. And there is quite a view there. That's a fun little town. A lot of people are hanging out there. You know, it's like a place where people are coming in for kind of a Sunday dinner type feel. Really nice gift shops, things like that. Not too far north of here. If you're coming from the bridge to here, you can pass through a little local grocery store that's called Bliss in Bliss. So it just lots of overlooks in this area, spots to capture photos. Do not be in a hurry on M119.
Yeah.
It's dangerous if people are kind of messing around, and I've seen a lot of sports cars are going up, you know, to the legs in for lunch, coming from up, you know, from down below. So, but boy, it's a great road. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely a road to see. The podcast can be found on bestmotorcycleroads.com/podcast. All the information you need will be there, but you can subscribe on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, Pocket Casts, and YouTube.
This is the interactive segment. We will be looking for input from you. We want you to send us your questions and suggestions for roads, topics, and anything else you have on your mind. Today's Roadside Q&A comes from Kevin. And again, I'm picking these questions that we're getting based on what we're going to be talking about for the episode.
We're mixing and matching,
trying to match it all up. So Kevin said, beyond the Mackinac Bridge, what are some lesser-known scenic routes in Michigan that offer unique riding experiences? And the one I was really thinking of was that Tequanaman Scenic Byway, M123.
Yes.
It's really like the best of the best in the Upper Peninsula. I was kind of picturing starting in Newberry and riding it west to east, but I mean, you were kind of talking about it going the other direction. But you'll ride along that Tequanaman Falls. It's one of the largest waterfalls east of Mississippi. And then there's dense forest, there's wildlife. And then you follow that all the way out to Whitefish Bay, Lake Superior there, then down to Emerson, Eckerman, and Trout Lake.
Yep. And if you are trying, I mean, I know you're talking about some other things here, but like if you're staying in hotels, Paradise Bay is it. Like you're right. That's the only hotel in the area. Like,
you're right.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I know that my wife and I looped Lake Michigan several years ago, and I was just in awe. It was my first time that I remember being in the Upper Peninsula. And I just remember being in awe and just saying, all right, I want to rent a VRBO, come up here for a week, you know, and just ride and visit places. The towns are cool, they're quaint. But having said that, don't miss riding along US 2.
Yeah.
Where you were talking about that from the Mackinac Bridge up to Nobbin Way.
Yep.
Man, that's a gorgeous area there.
Well,
that is so neat.
So, you know, and I think it's St. Ignace, right? Is that what's on the north side of the bridge?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I think so, yeah.
So, like, that might be interesting. Like, finding... That's quaint.
Ignace,
it's a quaint town. It's a cool town.
Yeah.
Because there's also, to the far east of St. Ignace is a place called Drummond Island. And if you go all the way to the end of Drummond Island, that's as west as you can be in Michigan. Or, excuse me, east as you can be in Michigan. Which, yeah, so that might be interesting to plan out sometime is, you know, VRBO and St. Ignace. That gives you, I think, a pretty, you could do a heck of a long day ride down on that, you know, northeastern side of Michigan and come back.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. And then, of course, visit Mackinac Island while you're right there, right?
I don't think you can have motors there.
No. I mean, just, you take a ferry over there and walk or bicycle.
I'm confused.
No. Mackinac Island?
Yeah,
no
motors, did you say?
Sorry. We could clip all this out, right?
Clearly you're not hearing me. No, it's such an interesting area. I mean, what I've always found really interesting is maybe not right in the very, very top of Michigan, but you get very far, and it's two different places.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that the UP should really be part of Wisconsin. You know, it's more, but yeah, it's fun. Now it's time for the last mile. It's kind of the way we close the episode with a reflection on the things we've heard today. Todd, what do you got?
Again, Upper Peninsula, Michigan, highly recommended. I want to go back, but I'm interested in exploring some of the east part that I really haven't done any riding in.
Yeah.
You know, so Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
And I guess the one thing, and it's technically not Michigan, so maybe this is why we didn't talk about it, but there are 2 ferries that run back and forth from Illinois or Wisconsin to Michigan, which can be fun too. So Milwaukee to Muskegon, and I'm forgetting something Manistee. I can't remember where the upper one goes, but you do have options for ferries, and that's kind of fun too. I'm a little bit pricey. Those ferries are pretty good priced. I do know that if you go on them after Labor Day and before Memorial Day, they're cheaper. So if you want to take the ferry, look for those discounted days. But I know that after Labor Day, they can be a little bit cheaper, which may be a good option too.
And how long a ride would those be?
It depends. They're both the same length of time. I think it's about like an hour and a half or 2 hours. But one of them's twice the distance. So one of them goes quite a bit faster than the other one.
Speed,
But yeah. But other than that, I agree. As I love M119 Best Road Michigan, Whitefish Bay is attractive. Like, it's so cool. I'm excited for you guys to go up there the next time we go because I think you're going to be super impressed and happy with
I know I will. Yeah.
And you just sing the song a lot there.
Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yeah. If this episode revved up your day, don't keep it to yourself. Like, subscribe, and share it with your crew. We're all about the thrill of the ride and the bond it creates.
Keep the spirit of adventure alive, and remember, bikes, friends, and endless roads. The stories ride forever. Take care.